Ooh, welcome. It's a season preview edition of Amazin But True, our New York Mets podcast from the New York Post. I am Jake Brown, as they call me, rabid Mets fan on the New York Post website. That is me, and columnist, media personality, all those fancy titles, which really means obsessed with the Mets. That's who I am. And my co-host is former Mets pitcher, Emmy Award winner, and Long Island Ducks pitching coach, Nelson Figueroa. Follow us on Twitter at Jake Brown Radio, at FiggyNY. Follow the pod at Amazin But True, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts, everyone. A new season is here. We'll start the twice a week. We'll do a short one after the opener Thursday. And then after that, next Thursday, Figgy is booked. Endy Chavez, former Mets outfielder, will join us at Catch Astoria after the game. Come through. Astoria is a 15-minute ride from Citi Field. Might be a little traffic, but we'll wait for you all to get there. 5:30 to 6 range. We'll get started. We'll set up at 5:30. Come say hello to us and to Endy. Make your way over like we will from the game, and we'll see you at Catch Astoria. Make sure it's Katch, and make sure you do Astoria, or you'll end up at the one and eating steak in the city and great high-priced food in New York City. So come on down.
You see what we did there with Catch Astoria and Endy Chavez?
Wow. We did it on purpose. You'll never know. The Catch, the Katch. Well, Figgy, the season starts Thursday in Miami. Mets, Marlins, 4:00. The Mets play the Marlins for 4. They won't have the Thursday and then the off day like the Mets will have when they return home, for the home opener, the Friday off. Then the Brewers, they'll have the Brewers home opener, and then Citi Field for the opener, where Verlander will make his Mets home debut for the home opener. Love that they set it up that way, and smart that they did that way, Figgy. So Kodai Senga's first start isn't on that huge stage of the home opener. Instead, he'll get Citi Field replica day instead on the Saturday, or he'll pitch the day before. However, Buck ends up working it out. Well, Figgy, we're here. The big roster decision was made, and cue the Hava Nagila. Darin Ruf is gone. He's been DFA'ed. He is off the roster. Hey, now listen. Darin Ruf was a trade gone wrong, Figgy. You traded 4 prospects to get him. He mashed lefties, everyone said. His average versus lefties was good, even though it was like 252. He was a masher of lefties. Instead, he left us Mets fans mashing our head into the nearest wall, into the nearest brick wall. We weren't running through it in excitement. We were banging our head against the brick wall, having to watch a guy who hit no homers, 4 at-bats, no homers, went 5 for 30 in spring. They said he had arthritis. Mets fans had arthritis from tweeting about how bad he was, and trigger fingers turned to Twitter fingers. He was DFA'd. Tim LeCastro, pinch runner, gets the final roster spot. Mets fans can breathe somewhat of a sigh of relief here instead of me having a rant about it. There's 2 sides of this. One, you feel bad for Ruf. He only got 6-7 weeks here. He would have got booed off the field in the home opener. Didn't get a huge chance, but in the end, he wasn't, what he is. He's a guy who could maybe mash lefties, but he's not that good. The decision really was going with LeCastro over Vientos or Brett Beatty. They went with the pinch runner. We'll see one of those young guys soon. But I think Mets fans breathe. When Joel Sherman broke the news Monday morning, they breathed. They broke. They breathed a sigh of relief that Darin Ruf was DFA'd.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall. It was a trade that never worked out. And you said 4 prospects. It was actually 3 prospects. And J.D. Davis.
That's right. Yes.
J.D. Davis, who was a pretty good masher of lefties himself. So if that's all you wanted was a masher of lefties, you had that already in a J.D. Davis. J.D. Davis just didn't get enough reps or enough playing time to, materialize because, you had Escobar. So, yeah, the trade was a disaster. It never worked out. He didn't fit. He just never pulled his weight. No pun intended, but he looks like he's probably going to wind up going to Philadelphia to, be a Hoskins probably replacement. I think that's where he's a better fit.
And he'll probably hit his first homer, and he'll do it against the Mets because that's the kind of luck we'll have. He'll be on the All-Star. He'll be a write-in on the All-Star roster.
For whatever reason, it didn't work out. The kudos to the Mets for moving on. Roster construction being what it is, you don't have Vientos or Beatty. You know, you want to continue their development, let them get the reps that they deserve by starting and playing every day. And you have somebody in LeCastro who can come off the bench, you know, play outfield positions, also can pinch run. You need that speed element. That's a very important thing for this team. So roster construction being what it is, you don't just keep guys around just to keep them around. You have Tommy Pham, who can hit from the right side and hits well against lefties as well. So those things all added up to bye-bye Ruf. And we said it when the Mets started making all these big moves and getting all these bigger names and locking up guys. You know, this team's not going to sit around and wait and see if a guy can, you know, materialize to be the player that he was. They're ready to move on, and they did it very quickly.
Yeah, and listen, Tommy Pham isn't a bum. I think a lot of Mets fans are like, Tommy Pham, the guy who slapped or punched whoever he did over
Jock Peterson
over, what is it, fantasy football? A fantasy football thing. I mean, he's not a complete bum. Tommy Pham is a guy who can steal bases. And when we talk about Tim LeCastro stealing bases, the Mets factored in here that there will be bigger bases, and there's going to be more stolen bases. There's going to be no shifts. So you're going to see guys. The new shift is going to be a guy stealing a base and the second baseman or shortstop having to get to the base, and then you hit it through the hole where they ain't, just like they did.
Old baseball.
It's like old baseball again. It's like old Gretchen from 1947 watching, Babe Ruth is going to be enjoying the old game again. The old skipper playing bingo and watching baseball, baby, at the old person's home. I love it. America's national pastime is back. Tommy Pham is a guy, 2022, 17 and 63, 2021, 15 and 49, 2019, 21 and 68, 2018, 21 and 63. So this is a guy who homers, he drives and runs, and he gets on base almost a third of the, almost 33% of the time. So, his career OBP is 354. So this is not a total bum in Tommy Pham as your fourth outfielder. And we were all worried about Brandon Nimmo. He looks good to go. I mean, how about that? Week to week became day to day, and the normal Mets week to week. Yeah, pray to, Chick-fil-A's closed on Sundays. Brandon Nimmo's at church on Sundays praying. And we pray that he'd be okay. And we prayed to our good Lord that he would be here, and he will be there for the opener. And Darin Ruf, bye-bye Ruf. Hello, happiness. Hello, happiness. I'm going to cry, in the words of whoever wrote Bye-Bye Love.
Oh, good God. Nimmo, of course, they say week to week, and it was a mere 8 days. So, God rested on the seventh day. Nimmo rose from the dead on the 8th day and is back to playing. So happy for us, happy for Mets fans, because you need that guy in the lineup and playing center field. Marte looks really good. We saw him rounding the bases yesterday, scoring. Those are all the things that you're watching as the spring training ends and you're ready to start the season, that these guys are clicking or moving on all cylinders without any kind of hindrance. And the more guys that are available, the better. They're going to need them.
Yeah, in the opening day lineup, if it's, assume a righty starting, this is basically the lineup. It's Nimmo up top, center field, batting second, right fielder. He is sexy, folks. Starling Marte, batting third. Blue hair on a bobblehead. He is the most expensive player in the franchise, but also a great guy. Francisco Lindor. Cleanup. We await for his new contract one day. Pete Alonso at first. Fifth will likely be Jeff McNeil playing second base. Sixth will be Mark Canha playing left. Seventh, Daniel Vogelbach as your DH. Eighth, Eduardo Escobar, just switch hitter playing third. And the ninth, Omar Narvaez will probably play against righties as catcher. And I expect Tomas Nido likely against lefties. Your bench, Luis Guillorme, backup at third, backup at second, backup at short. You got Tommy Pham, who will be your backup outfielder. And then you have Tim LeCastro, backup outfielder. Backup first baseman, you don't really have one there. I guess, Vogelbach, if you go that route. As a backup first baseman, don't have a ton of options, but, they don't have to worry about that yet. So now the great debate here, Figgy. I think we all agree Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, one of the two or both, earned a spot in the opening day roster. If you want to go by spring stats, I'm not someone who's huge on that, but if you want to say prove yourself in the spring to get on the final roster spot, I think Mets fans would have pulled their hair out, me my non-existent hair, if it was Darin Ruf over Beatty and Vientos. Instead, it's LeCastro, who you can argue late game pinch hitter, defensive replacement, you know, a guy who does something for the team in late innings that can help you win ball games. You'd rather that than a Ruf who you know you haven't. But I think it would have been really cool for Mets fans here, Figgy, that home opener you welcome Brett Beatty. And maybe in a week it happens. Maybe there's an injury. Hopefully not. Something happens.
Oh, God, Jake.
A weekend, they're like, the mush god. Stop. Hey, stop talking. But it would have been a cool moment for especially Beatty, who, you know, 11 games, you saw some power, you saw a smooth swing, and then the thumb injury got the best of him. It would have been cool for him to be there in front of the fans on the home opener. Vientos against lefties, you know, with Vogelback not be able to hit lefties. That would have been an interesting option. The Mets went the route of, like you said, get them reps, you know, in the minors, and then maybe they're up by Cinco de Mayo or whenever it is. Maybe it's late April, maybe it's sometime in May. These guys will be here. I think Mets fans got to remember, this season is long. We know injuries well. I hate to be mush, but it's just a fact. It's not even me mushing. The Mets are known to be hurt. Guys get hurt. These guys will be here sooner rather than later, but I could understand the frustration that you don't get to see one of these young guys to open what could be a championship season.
Yeah, you're looking across town and you see all the excitement with Volpe making the Yankees as their opening day shortstop, right?
Volpening day.
Tremendous story for them, and it's something that Yankee fans wanted. They wanted the youth, they wanted the enthusiasm, they wanted the young player who maybe will help change up, you know, what their lineup looks like. For the Mets, it's different, right? You have all those players in place. You have guys who hit to contact. You have guys who can run. You have speed. So you have all those things already. When it comes to those, to Beatty and Vientos has more experience at the upper levels and, you know, has mashed for the last 3 years at the AAA level. Should have more of an opportunity as a right-handed pinch hitter if, say, Tommy Pham doesn't work out. But you're going to go with Tommy Pham first. On Beatty's behalf, you know, he doesn't have a lot of upper level seasoning. He came up and, you know, it was way before he should have come up. But at the end of it, you're looking for a complete prospect, a guy that's not overwhelmed by being in the major leagues, a guy who, you know, yes, he comes off the injury and that's what you're looking. He looked really good in spring training and you wanted to have him win a job. He did everything that he could possibly do. It just wasn't going to be his time unless there was an injury where he just slid right in. If there was an injury to Escobar, it's a no-brainer. He's going to be your third baseman. And he's your third baseman in the future. Remember, Escobar is here for one more year this season. So if Escobar starts out a little bit slow like he did last year, it's quite possible that they just cut ties as well. You know, this is a new Met regime. They're not afraid to you know, like I always say, buy 6 nuggets and throw 3 out the window. They got that kind of cash. So if it's going to make the team better, then we'll see if that is a possibility when it comes to Beatty and when he's going to make his 2023 debut.
Don't get me all excited talking about nuggets here. You don't want to get me. I had some after Billy Joel last night. Me and Hartz had a podcast night out at the legendary Billy Joel at the Garden. The Mets here, you got to remember, fans want to like write off Eduardo. Escobar was a huge reason they had, you know, moments in September and he was hot. And I think we all love him with his, you know, the video spring training we saw, everything we saw about it. The guy, Eduardo Escobar, this guy could hit a bit. I know he's not the best defensively and he started off bad last year, but everyone wanted to be like Brett Beatty, everyday third baseman. Let's not write off Eduardo Escobar like he's nothing. He's a very good player. And I want to see Escobar at third. You know, you want to see these guys play defense too. And Beatty improved a bit defensively, still some question marks. But like, remember that Eduardo Escobar is a great major league player, and I expect production out of him. So the Mets don't want Brett. You know, the decision's not going to. It was going to kill you with Ruf. Castro's not going to kill you on a final roster spot in a very, very, very part-time role. Is not going to make or break the Mets season. Ruf would have frustrated fans. I still don't think if they kept Ruf for a couple weeks, you know, the Mets aren't winning the division. But as we know, the Mets finished in a tie with the Braves. So every game does end up being important because that tie, that difference could have meant you don't play in that wild card series. Maybe the Mets October fortunes change. You don't run into a hot San Diego team. Maybe everything changes. So one game could make a difference. And, you know, LeCastro is going to be interesting. This team has got to steal bases this year. With the banning of the shift, Figgy, with these bigger bases, with the pitch clock, with the limits on how many times you could throw, with all these new rules, with LeCastro, I want to see Nimmo run. Marte, if he's okay, he's got to be running. He's got speed. If his groin, everything, all is good, and he can run, Do it. I don't want him in the lineup, just for his bat. I want to see his speed. Lindor. I mean, the top 3 guys should be stealing bases. When LeCastro comes in, he should be stealing bases. That gives you Escobar will sometimes steal a base. You have 4 to 5 players that you should be getting stolen bases from. And I like to see the Mets play a lot more small ball. Small ball and the new rules. Talk about how the new rules, Figgy, will affect the Mets, because we've heard both sides of the story. Scherzer loves it. Now Scherzer's backing off a little bit, saying umpires should control the pitch clock. They shouldn't have it there. He's getting distracted by that thing. We were at the stadium the other day. You see it. It's right there. Yep. They got like the DraftKings ad, and then they got the pitch clock. So you're thinking about, all right, am I betting on the over-under strikeouts or am I watching the pitch clock? That's right there. It's a bit distracting. Corner of your eye, it's right there. You're looking at the clock. You're trying to figure out the pitch. You're figuring out who's at the plate. You're figuring out what you want to throw. It's getting distracting for these guys. So talk about the new rules and, how they're going to impact the Mets.
Yeah, like basketball with the shot clock, and in college basketball especially, you hear the crowd kind of misrepresenting the time that's left, right? They're counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, and the guy's ready to shoot because he doesn't want to look at the clock. He's looking at the defender that's in front of him. He's looking at, trying to run the play, and all of a sudden he hears a countdown, like, oh my God, I got to get this shot off. So that's one of those little tricks that, that's been done in college. I don't like the idea of that being even a possibility in baseball. And here you're going to sit here and you're worried about the pitch clock. You're worried about the resetting of the pitch clock. It's like football, right? Please reset the clock to whatever. Oh, we got more time. Baseball's never been a game that's played because of time. It's a game that's played without time, without it, and over time. It's played until there's a winner. There's no ties in baseball. You don't want that kind of feeling of a clock dictating the action.
So you're saying it's interesting for playoffs that Mets fans are going to be doing the countdown instead of Darvish. They're going to be 3, 2, 1, and it's already over. Like he already ran out. There's going to be balks and balls left and right.
Yeah, there's anything could possibly happen because you don't know, especially a kid coming up. People are going to be nervous about this pitch clock. That's another element. Oh, how many times did I throw over? It was twice, and now I can't throw over again unless I pick them off. There's so many little things that are happening all at once. I think if you introduce these things, little by little, hey, you're banning the shift. That's one. That's a huge element because now left-handed hitters are actually going to be able to hit a little bit more. Left-handed hitters were getting killed, and guys like Curtis Granderson, guys like even Lucas Duda, their careers essentially were derailed. Lucas Duda was only 30, maybe 31 years old. He had hit 30 home runs in the last 2 out of 3 seasons that he played, and then it was like, oh my God, there's a shift where 5 people are playing on the right side. They don't even have a left fielder. Everybody's shifting over, and all he would do is hit right into the shift. What used to be based hits into right field, there's a second baseman playing short right field and pick it up and throw him out at first. So now you're going to see more 300 hitters. You'll see more action on that right side. So guys running from first to third, the bigger bases, where everything is now down to a millimeter, on these replays. And you're going back to do a replay when it used to be, it was a close play. The umpire said safe, he's safe. Oh, well, let's watch it again on that instant replay. With the bigger bases, that's 3 inches on each base. That's a little bit wider. You're going to have 6 inches. So it's a half a foot. Half a foot makes a huge difference in a play rather than it just being the 3 inches of the base that you're going to. So remember that when it comes to these runners and it comes to being a little bit more aggressive, and the best part is that Vogelbach commercial with Buck Showalter. Have you seen that thing? It's awesome, where he's thinking, haven't had a stolen base in 7 years. And he goes, I hope he doesn't think he's about stealing. Oh, yeah, he's thinking about it with the bigger bases. It's a possibility. Anything is possible, especially with the pickoffs and limiting. Nobody's picking off on Daniel Vogelbach, but it's
get a bigger lead. I don't think it's out of the realm for him, a once a month or like every 2 weeks. You get paid, Vogelbach steals a base. You get a stolen base every 2 weeks. If he's going to get a big enough lead, take off. Yeah,
put that in your DraftKings, right,
bro? He's plus 8,000 one Vogelbach stolen base. You'll pay a mortgage.
No, so I like some of the new rules. I just think it's a lot thrown in all together. The game feels rushed to me, and that's not a feeling you should have when you're out there, trying to get out major league hitters. Is that you should feel rushed. You should feel so when these mega stars who they make a living out of upsetting people's timing and holding the ball a little longer or quick pitching or doing. So Scherzer loved it in the beginning. Remember that first outing that he had? He was like, "Oh, it's fun." They're looking at the clock. I'm trying to rush them. I'm holding the ball a little bit longer. Then I throw it. So there's all that stuff. And then what happened the next outing? 9 runs he gave up, even though they weren't earned, but it was an absolute fiasco because of the pitch clock. There was, he got called for a balk twice. All those different things that could possibly happen. That to me is a disaster for baseball. And the players themselves, they don't want to go on record as saying this thing stinks, but you can tell the uneasiness on the questions of it. They don't want to do exactly. They don't want to really adhere to it. They wanted it to be adjusted and maybe give a little bit more time. Like they were talking about, if you're the center fielder and you make a catch all the way at the wall, now you got to run in and you hurry up for your at bat. You got to come in a dead sprint. And that's another factor where the umpire should have some discretion of giving him a little bit more time before the clock starts. So I think there's some growing pains with it. We'll see some of that early on when these games actually count. Spring training, yeah, everybody loves it. Oh my God, it's a half hour less of a game. You know what? That's also a half hour less of concession sales, food and beverage.
It'll suck when you're at the game. On TV, it'll be better, but like you said, like it's concerning that mentally these guys are thinking about 10 things at once now, and it could affect the performance. I mean, we'll find out as the season goes on, and let's just hope we don't have an end of the game violation.
Oh my God.
it's like the Armando Benitez when he was on the Giants, the walk-off balk against the Mets. Like that might be a pitch clock violation, or like he stepped off 3 times, boom, violation, ball 4.
Oh my God.
Take your base, game over.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting in the box score. Walk off, pitch clock, violation, walk. Like I don't even know how they're going to word it. Good luck scoring. If you want people who scores games, good luck. All right, so the good, I think here we agree, is the Mets rotation: Scherzer, Verlander, Senga, Carrasco, and it will be David Peterson. So Big Drip is starting the season in AAA. Won't even be part of the bullpen. Interesting move. Didn't have a great spring. So the Mets are instead going to go with some unknowns and John Curtis and Steven Nagasek and potentially Dennis Santana. Tommy Hunter, our guy, makes the team. Good for him. 16 years, had a good spring. Excited for him. But that middle relief is going to be a big question mark of this team, getting the ball to Ottavino and Robertson. Because even Drew Smith, I don't really fully trust Drew Smith in big spots. He's going to get a lot of big spots in the 7th inning. 2 outs, needs to get it out. Drew Smith is going to have a huge role this year. We'll see if he's ready for it. Brooks Raley, he's going to have to get righties out too. He can't just be the lefty guy. He's going to have to be a 7th inning guy because his numbers were great last year. So he's going to be, it's no more one batter anyway. But, Raley's going to have to be a big 7th inning kind of setup guy for this Mets team. All right, Figgy, let's make some predictions for the season. I'll hand it off to you first. Who wins the NL East? How many wins will the Mets have? And how far do they go this year?
Well, not to rain on anyone's parade, but the dynamic of the team is definitely different without Diaz. Diaz is that for sure closer who just you knew what you were getting. Games were going to end when he came in and the trumpets played, right? That's a huge factor. I mean, I bumped them down a bunch of wins because of that.
A bunch.
Wow. A bunch. I think there's going to be more. You think there's going to be less than 5 blown saves because of it?
There'll be 5 plus. I'd set that
right
over.
So remember we talked about this when you were like, Diaz is terrible. He had 5 blown saves. I go, that's less than once a month. And you're like, yeah, that's right. So is that really terrible? No. But at the same time, when you're expecting 5 more wins at the end of a season, that's the difference between a 95 win team and a 90 win team. Will they be a 90 win team? Of course. I know there'll be a 90 win team. Are they going to win the division? Man, injuries are biting everybody in the butt to start out the season. Winning 95 games is going to be tough, but I do think that this division is so good that there's going to be 3 teams making it from this division like last year. So do I need them to win the division? No. Would it be nice? Sure. But everything that we're seeing in baseball, and especially in recent years, is you don't have to be that number 1 team because it takes a lot out of you to be that number 1 team for 162 games. You get to the playoffs and all of a sudden you got a team who just clicked on all cylinders, like the Phillies, like the Padres, and they're running the table come playoff time. So I think they're built to go into the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs, and especially if they're able to somehow get Diaz back towards the end there. So I look at them to be somewhere between 90 and 95 wins, which is going to be probably good for second in the division and make the playoffs, and we'll see where they go from there.
All right, so you're not going to give a cut in stone World Series, NLCS. I'm going to say 98 wins. The Mets have a few off. I just feel like with the shift and the rule change, I think it benefits the Mets enough. Yes, losing Diaz sucks. I do think at some point, if their bullpen is struggling, they'll go out and trade, and that might involve trading Vientos or trading someone, because this should be an all-in year. Even without Diaz, I think the Mets should be all in. And if it means trading, a big prospect to get an elite reliever, whoever it may be, you got to go out and do it. Mets win the division, 98 wins. The Braves are in second. I say the Mets, Cardinals, Padres are division winners. Dodgers and Braves are the wild cards. I'm going to have the Yankees, Guardians, Astros, AL, Mariners, Blue Jays wild card. And I'm going to say the New York Mets hoist the World Series trophy as they defeat the Houston Astros into the first week of November. And we have a parade down the Canyon of Heroes in New York City again for the first time in my lifetime. The Mets will do it. You might have to rewind because I might have said something almost word for word last year, but this year, I believe it. I'm staying positive with the Diaz news, and there's just something like I feel like Diaz, the mentality, he's gonna be back in October. I feel like he's gonna come back, and we're gonna get that trumpet October moment. Mets win the World Series. Well, we'll have a post-game show after the opener. We'll be back next Monday with a special guest, the live pod, Catch Astoria, Andy Chavez, 5:30 p.m. on Thursday the 6th after the game. But coming up next on Amazin But True, we'll keep previewing the season with the new radio voice alongside Howie Rose on WCBS. That's Keith Raad right here on Amazin But True. Welcome back to Amazin But True. Jake Brown, Nelson Figueroa on our season preview podcast here. And why not preview the season with a man who's new to a lot of you, unless you were, watching MILB streams and the Brooklyn Cyclones. And if you are, you have too much free time. I'm sorry. No disrespect to him, but there's something wrong with your social life if you're watching single A games on Mets off days. Let's welcome the new radio voice alongside Howie Rose for the New York Mets on W, as they taught us to say, at WRHU. It's WCBS. Keith Raad. Welcome, Keith, to the show. Welcome to Amazin But True, your first time on. How you doing, man?
Good. That's right. It is WCBS, which I found out very quickly in my own tenure as well, because MILB.TV, not enough people are watching to really dive in and make sure you say the MILB correctly, but W we get right every time.
CBS in another language. Well, welcome to the show. Since you're new, let's start off with ASL, like it's your screen name days. Let's get you. Do you know ASL? Or how? Well, I guess we'll find out when we get to the A of ASL. Do you know what ASL is or no?
I don't.
Wow, Keith.
I'm coming in fresh.
ASL is age, sex, location, like in the screen name, the chat days, and so yeah, give us A.
Hey, I'm 29.
Wow,
I am
younger than me. Figgy, he's younger than me. This guy is 29, 3 years off. That is impressive. All right. S, I already answer. Keith is hip.
Younger and better looking. Good gosh.
Yeah, younger, better looking, more hair. So S, he is him. So we know that. Location, where are you from?
I am from Valley Stream, New York, on Long Island, South Shore, born and raised. Currently live, though, on the Upper East Side of Manhattan with my wife.
There you go. All right. There it is. There's the ASL Figgy. We got it. You're a lifelong Mets fan?
I'm not. I grew up a Yankees fan. It's hard to do when there's pinstripes in the house and your uncle had a tryout with the Yankees and all your best friends love the Yankees. And but I did go to, I think my first 4 or 5 big league games were Mets games. And I've been at the Robin Ventura Grand Slam single game. I was at that game. I was at a lot of those games when they played the Giants and the Braves at Shea Stadium. I remember being so small, looking through legs and bodies to try to see Barry Bonds at the plate because I was down the left field line. But it took until getting into the minor leagues where you fall in love with whatever team you're working for, working your way through. So I fell in love with the Cincinnati Reds organization, the Texas Rangers coming up. When I was with the Long Island Ducks in Indie Ball, I would fall in love with them as well. And then when I came to the Brooklyn Cyclones, having known about that organization, and of course the New York Mets, it becomes a family. You see behind the curtain when you have jobs like this. And it didn't take long to fall in love and call the Mets my family. To be honest, it's New York. I can't lie. I grew up a Yankees fan, but now it's all Mets all the way.
Take us through the journey, like from start to here, from college to 29. I want to hear you go through the pit stops and how you got here.
Yeah, you mentioned MILB.TV. Well, it all started my sophomore summer in college. I interned with the Dayton Dragons. I was at the University of Dayton out in Ohio. And I remember just getting an internship, getting in there, and I worked that entire year. And my dad was so upset. He's like, I have to pay for this college credit of yours, and they're not even paying you anything. So why don't I just give you the money and you come home instead of me spending all this money for you to live in a house and eat and all that stuff. But that turned into a year of minor league baseball in college, summer ball in 2014, the Hamptons League out on Long Island. And then when I graduated, that was the first, okay, let's hit the ground running. I went back to the Dragons, which is Cincinnati's low A at the time. And I did that in 15. I went to the Long Island Ducks in 2016, learned about indie ball and what that life is like. Very interesting lifestyle versus affiliated. And then in 2017, I went down to AA Frisco at the Texas Rangers organization. And that was where my first taste of upper level minor leagues came from, and working in a major market because Frisco was right outside of Dallas with Texas. And then from there, I kind of saw the writing on the wall of how I wanted to do this and go about it. And the Texas experience was big. I always wanted to come back to New York and work in New York. And even though I took a quote unquote demotion, going from AA ball to short season, single A baseball, playing half the year that normal minor leagues are, I felt like getting back to New York was a good way to get where I wanted to go. And I did that for 2 years. And then luckily everything realigned and Brooklyn became full season. So some of the players that we got were, bona fide studs in the making. Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, some of these guys recently that Mets fans know about. And from that, they kind of raised the level, and my tape was good enough over all those 9-10 years of doing it that Odyssey said, come on down.
So Figgy, maybe people were watching his streams because it was Beatty and Vientos and guys we were talking about on this show who didn't make the team.
That's exactly what you hope for. You need to have those superstars in the making to help make you, right. I love the journey, and being a guy who was a career minor leaguer, you finally get the call. And what was that like that day that you received that phone call?
Yeah, it's funny, Figgy, you talk about that. I mean, it's kind of the same experience as those players. I mean, you're in it a little bit longer. The journey sometimes is even harder for minor leaguers. It's impossible for umpires. Just these little things you pick up. But for a broadcaster to get the call in his own market, working for that team, that you're currently with at 29. I mean, I was standing outside the media entrance at Maimonides Park now, looking up at the parachute jump. Sounds so cliche, but there was no cell service in my office, so I had to step outside. And Chris Olivero called me and said, "Hey, I want to be the first to welcome you to the show. Congratulations! You're going to the major leagues." And it was speechless. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I'm thinking about all those moments of places I've been and those nights where no one's listening, and I struggle, I blow a call, or I didn't nail what I wanted to do, and now here we are after all that hard work. And the first call after that, I have to say, was to my wife Kate, who we met at Dayton. I know you're not supposed to meet freshman year the woman you end up marrying, but that's the way it happens. And she's been with me every step of the way at every single one of those levels in the minor leagues. We had long distance for a ton of those experiences. So I called her. She did the crying, and I've saved my tears for a little bit later when it finally hit me. But that was just a really sweet moment for myself, my wife, and called my family after that, because as you guys know, especially you, Figgy, coming up, I mean, you never know. You call them and you say, "Hey, man, it didn't work out of this organization. I got to go out to Oregon or Nashville or find the next job."
Mm-hmm.
And this was the best call I could have ever gotten.
Biggie.
Oh man, I'm telling you,
emotional.
But that's the truth of it all, is that you watch on TV the superstars, and you don't realize how long it actually takes certain people. And even in broadcasting, it's even rarer for the opportunity, because you're one of one. It's not like there's 30 guys. There's not a bullpen worth of guys. You're not a reliever. you're the guy, and you get to jump right in with the great Howie Rose, who we love here on our show. And that right there is a little bit daunting, because I know when I jumped in and they're like, hey, you're going to be alongside Gary, Keith, and Ron. And I'm like, oh, that's the best in baseball by
Right.
far. There's no other booth like that. So you're joining the best of the best. When it comes to Howie Rose, his calls are historic. And so I got to imagine, after that realization that I'm in the big leagues, it's like, now I got to be able to keep up with this guy. So that is a little daunting in that task itself.
Yeah, it's a little bit of oh bleep, this is real. We've got to figure this out now. Fake it till you make it. But yeah, I mean, Howie, the relationship with Howie was part of the process. It's actually the first part of the process to make sure that chemistry works, because it is a professional marriage, so to speak. I mean, you guys look like you're doing great together, but you had to make sure that it worked between Jake and Nelson, and Howie had to make sure that it would work, the vibe between us, because it's a long season. It's a lot of 3 hour. You're hanging out every night for 3 hours, telling the same story, doing it in two different ways. So, but yeah, he's a legend, and he knows it. But he tells me all the time to, don't treat me like it. We're coworkers now. We're equals, and that's really comforting, because it is easy to go in there all starry eyed and go, oh my gosh, this guy's called every single memory that has lasted since I've been born in 1993. That kind of thing. And here I am sitting next. Sorry, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, me and Figgy have gone through divorces. We've had a couple of prenups. We've had fights, but we're still here on season 4 of the Amazin But True podcast, growing sick of each other like a married couple would sometimes. But we do get along well. And I think we're both off the air. We're clowns, kind of like we're the circus. And I think that's what makes it work. And when we got to be serious, we got to be serious. And we take the New York Mets very serious, Keith, in the year 2023, where Darin Ruf is sent packing. You're not. You're in. Ruff's out. Ruf DFA'ed. Keith Raad signed. That's the kind of trade we asked for. Did you ever have a moment where you wanted to quit? Now, you're 29, so you don't have to wait as long as others. I went to WRHU. I called a few Long Island Ducks games where Figgy will coach, call some games, but I didn't go to the route of going to Montana. A lot of my, friends at the radio station went to Montana, Kentucky, Greensboro to make, ramen noodle money. I mean, the money is terrible. You were making, EBT food stamp money to call games, do what you love, but, have an empty stomach some nights, or just go ham on McDonald's or the dollar menu, because that was probably a thing back then. So there was those days where you're like, what the hell am I doing? And it's your passion, though. I get it. I worked in the digital side at Odyssey with CBS Radio at the time, making 45 grand, but I wanted to be in sports, so I did it. Did you have that time where your patient
45 grand? I don't make 45 grand.
Well, after taxes at New York, that's like 25. Come on.
Jake, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, seriously.
I would kill for that.
Listen, I have a lavish lifestyle. It's not that much for my lifestyle.
Yes. Ramen noodle jackets now.
Yeah.
It's there were many times, because you have to be a little bit crazy to do this, because it is so high risk, high reward, that if you do make it all the way, it's like, okay, great. Like, this is what I had in mind, but there's so many people on the way that fall off the wagon and don't make it all the way. And so you see them, and people leave baseball and, hey, I'm making money. I see my family. This is great. I'm actually having a great time. And you think, wow, maybe I should hang it up, because there were a couple moments, some of the jobs that I took out of in the minor leagues. I mean, AA for the Rangers, the Frisco Rough Riders. I was the broadcast assistant, so I was working alongside the main person. I moved down there. I was making $725 a month taxed. So I was bringing home $6 something, and I was living with a host family. I had to pay them $300 something. So what are you left with? And it's a lot of the things in there that people don't realize is, if you really do believe in yourself, you'll do it. You'll figure it out. But I mean, I was living with credit card debt that I couldn't get out of for years, until I thought, well, I better make it now, because it keeps climbing, because I keep moving and paying for food, and the money's not coming in. And there was another instance where I'm not going to name the team, but the end of the year came. We had maybe a week left before the end of the assistantship or internship, and they handed me and a bunch of other interns a kind of like a pick, and they said, okay, before you go for the end of the season, just go around to all the railings on the concourse, just pick the caulk out if you don't mind. We're just going to have everything re-caulked. And it's just like, this is what you have me doing on the last day. You've paid me nothing, and this is how I'm going to end my tenure with this team. And that's just you just kind of bite your tongue and move along. And that was a moment where I was like, maybe I don't need to do this if this is what it's going to be like. Because I was going to sit into it to about 40 years old, just really hang on there till about 40, try to make the show. The fact that it's 29, I mean, I can't believe that. But there were a couple moments in there, Jake, where it's just like, this is hard. This is really hard.
Yeah, 29. That is insane. I thought you were closer to my 32 in your 30s, but that's incredible. Yeah. And, if you're in this industry and don't have 5-figure credit card debt, then you either have a rich family or you're stripping on the side. I mean, it's one of the two. You either got a side gig where you're making, I don't know if you ever thought about stripping in Frisco, Keith, if you wanted to be a male gigolo, what's that movie? European Gigolo, whatever, Rob Schneider, whatever it's called.
Deuce Bigelow.
Yeah. Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo. Deuce Bigelow, Frisco Gigolo, Keith Raad, the sequel. I didn't know if you ever thought about that or had to work at like Dick's Sporting Goods for $9 an hour or whatever it was. But, you had to pick up side gigs, or you got to have a great support system. Sounds like, you have a great wife. That's a special bond. I have chicken parm to get me through. I don't have a significant other. It's funny you mentioned the college girl. That was my mom still wishes I married my college freshman girlfriend. So you got that route. Mine is now having a kid now in a month with someone else. And my mom reminds me, she's like, "Oh, did you hear Brooke is having a kid?" I'm like, "Yes, Mom. You know her social security number." I know. So the support system is also essential to get you through it mentally, financially, physically, and just power you through, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I really tried when I was 14, my mother drove me to get my working papers, which was just kind of the work ethic that I was instilled with very quickly. I think legally that is the youngest you can be to get a job. So happy birthday, blow out the candles. Let's drive down to the village hall. Let's get you working. So I always had that instilled in me. And, my dad every Friday in high school, hey, here's $20, go out. But by the time I started working at the pool or delivering pizzas, I wanted to I want to try to do whatever I do myself. And certainly my parents saved a ton for college. That was extremely helpful. But when I got to the minor leagues, I didn't want anything. I wanted to really try to do this myself, because it's not fair to ask my parents, hey, could you spot me for this or that? They would help from time to time, no doubt. But yeah, there were some crazy jobs in there. I used to ref a ton of hockey games at 6 a.m. on a Saturday and on a Sunday, making $29, try to work a back-to-back, 8U, 10U, mom and dad are screaming at you from behind the glass. It's like, the kids are 8. Why are you yelling at me? And those kind of things. I worked at the deli counter at Christie's during COVID, when there was no baseball going on, slicing up, sandwiches and cold cuts for rich old ladies on the Upper East Side coming down for, their oven gold turkey for the week. But yeah, all that stuff though makes it sweeter. But it's funny you said that about your mom. Yeah. Moms know all that kind of stuff about, oh, you should have done this. You should have done that. Well, I mean, one too.
I mean, I told you the other day when I saw you at the tasting event that, I could have been you. If Howie Rose makes the call to what would be my mom about 2 weeks earlier than he did.
That's totally different. What are you talking about?
I'm Jake Rose.
He's not his son.
I'm just saying, in relation with, the mother and your co-host, your partner, I could have been Jake Rose, or I wouldn't be on this planet. So some people probably hope for the latter, that I didn't exist. But
man, I'm going to hold back what I really want to say, but I can tell you what, one of the things about the journey, you go looking back and you start thinking about all those moments, and was quitting really an option? No, because you can tell how driven you were. You're passionate about what you do, and now you get to do that. I want to know, do you have a favorite call that you've made thus far in your career? That most memorable one that you feel like, if you had a chance to put it on your reel over and over again, or you actually listen to it, like I watch some of my old highlights every now and then. I have to prove to people like I actually played baseball. I get those kids, I get the parents who are like, man, I watched you growing up. I'm like, whoa, slow down. Okay. So is there that one call that you remember very, very fondly?
I have one, but before I jump into that, it's funny. We had Andy Chavez was our bench coach in 19 in Brooklyn, and Andy would sometimes pull out the iPad and he'd pull up some Andy Chavez highlights, because some of the guys didn't quite know what Andy was all about. And I remember walking into the coach's office one day, probably dropping off rosters or something, and Andy turns the iPad to me and he pulls one down the line, And I go, nice, double. And he turns and shoots me a look, double, triple. And he yelled at me because I didn't think he had the speed to get all the way to third. So
Oh my God.
I appreciate that. But the call that sticks out to me was when it just big for the community. Obviously, it's not this biggest call ever in the world, but when the Cyclones won the 2019 New York Penn League championship, my call was, Brooklyn, you have your title. I said it with a little more fervor than that.
Oh, I remember it.
Early morning time. But yeah, that was a moment where, being the broadcaster for the Brooklyn Cyclones, Brooklyn baseball has so much history with Ernie Harwell and Vince Scully and Red Barber and all these people. Warner Fusell called our games. He was a legend in the radio business for a long time. And the Cyclones had never won a championship. 1955 was the last Dodgers World Series. And in the year 2001, Brooklyn's first year, the Cyclones played in the championship series with Williamsport, but 9/11 happened and it canceled the rest of the season. So they were co-champs. So fast forward 18 years after that, 2019, playing against the Lowell Spinners, which is the Red Sox affiliate, and in the minor leagues during playoffs. Figgy, you might know this. There's just not a lot of people that come to the games because the community doesn't know that there's playoffs going on. They just want to come for the bobblehead nights and the fireworks nights. And now you add on extra games at the end of the season. Nobody's ready for that. So you get about 2,000 people if you're lucky. But the thing is that those 2,000 people are the diehard, the crazies that love the Brooklyn Cyclones. And as the game was unfolding, I looked down and I could see all these people and a lot of empty seats, but a lot of people into it. And I thought, man, these people are here. They've been here for 20 years. They want to see a championship. This is for them. So when I made that call, the last strikeout, Brooklyn, you have your title. That was just a little thing that I picked up from them. But the cool part was the next day, the Mets were kind enough to bring us out to Citi Field. And they had the team on the field for BP, and they took us up to a suite, and guys were eating sushi and shrimp cocktail, loving life, living it up. And they played the highlights of the call on the scoreboard at Citi Field. And I heard my voice in the stadium for the first time ever, a big league stadium. I got goosebumps. Holy, maybe this would be cool one day if it happened. And it did. So yeah, Brooklyn, you have your title is definitely the one that stands out.
So I actually heard that call live. I had tuned in because being born in Brooklyn and Coney Island, I root for the team. My dad gets to go and throw out the first pitch. Gary Perone used to let my dad come out. I'm like, Dad wants to come to a game. He's like, however many tickets he needs, and he could throw out the first pitch. And my dad would. He would literally go out and throw out the first pitch. So I remember when I called my parents and everything. I go, this is it, last game for all the marbles, the championship game. And we all listened in because we didn't have video at the time to watch it. So we're listening in on the radio. And I remember hearing the call right at the end. I'm throwing my hands up in the air and I'm celebrating. I'm like, wow, I know what that moment was like as a player, and so to remember hearing, remember hearing your voice. And that was the moment that anytime you win a championship, it's special. And it doesn't matter. You don't get a lot of opportunities to make the playoffs or World Series. That's out of your control. But when you have a chance to win a championship and you finally do, like you said, a long history, 20 years of waiting around for one. And now forever, your voice is next to that call. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And that's the thing, too. It's for people that don't know that moment or the community. It's a nice call. It's loud, but there were some people that worked. I don't know if you remember Ricky Viola working at the Cyclones. He's been there for 20 years up in the AV room. And Ricky's born and bred Brooklyn, and he's worked there forever. And he said that, that call gave him goosebumps. And just the little image, it's like, wow, I allowed that moment to happen for this person. And it meant a lot to the couple thousand people that were watching and at the game. And so that's why it's the most meaningful thing, even though it wasn't, tens of thousands of millions of people like Howie Rose has had, but it's part of the journey.
Brooklyn, you have your title. New York Mets, you have your title. Well, Howie's probably going to call that final out, but you'll be alongside of him when it does happen in 2023, when the Mets do win the World Series, because I am predicting that will happen because we will get Edwin Diaz back, or we will make a trade for his brother or another closer. I think it will be in the works. But yeah, it's a cool story. And especially considering the Brooklyn Nets probably with trading the whole team aren't getting a title anytime soon. It might be the Cyclones title for a long time there in Brooklyn. What's going to be the order? Is it like Howie first 3, you 4 through 6, him 7 to 9? Have you guys worked that out?
Yeah, I'm taking it off of what he and Wayne Randazzo did, which was Wayne would usually take over for 3, 4, and 7 for the play-by-play, and then lay back and do color as Howie did the rest of the 6 innings. So I'm cool with that. I mean, the spring he's allowed myself and Pat McCarthy, who will do a couple games too, to just get used to it, do a ton more innings. So I've done a lot more innings this spring than I'll probably do when you're tuning into a Mets game this year. But I don't know the exact breakdown quite yet. But it doesn't matter to me. I'm out there. I'm in there. I get at least 1/2 inning, probably a full 3 innings. So it'll be great.
I'm convinced if your last name is McCarthy, you're guaranteed a job in broadcasting these days. It's unbelievable. I mean, I might have to change my name to get in the broadcast biz there. But looking forward to hearing you guys, WCBS. Before we let you go, what do you think of the Mets? Is World Series? Am I in a psychiatric home saying they're going to win the World Series now that Diaz is gone? What do you think of this team? You like what you see so far, and what's your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, it's not blowing smoke. I mean, look at the World Series odds. They're top 5, I think. They're right there with the Padres as some of the best odds to win it all. Verlander and Scherzer have shown me that they are just crazy enough in a good way to just run the table kind of thing. Like they don't suffer any fools. They would like to see. They're not here for no reason, especially Verlander. No wasted time. So those guys setting the tone. Buck is being around him way more brilliant than I thought naively. He schools everybody every day. And just being around that, I think the Mets will be fine. I think the offense last year, fifth most runs in baseball, even though they weren't the sexy runs, all the home runs, they were about middle of the road. They get a couple more home runs this year. I think they'll be in fine shape. Diaz sucks. That loss sucks, but they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
I'm glad you followed with that loss sucks. At first you said Diaz sucks. I'm like, how dare you? You sound like me in 2020 when I said I traded for Dunkaroos.
I was exactly going to say that.
I did say when Dunkaroos were rare and hard to get and on the black market for a lot of money, I was like, Diaz is pitching so bad, I'd take the large pack of Dunkaroos for him. And now I wouldn't take caviar for Edwin Diaz. So I'm good keeping Diaz.
Please do not clip. Oh, Keith Raad, new broadcaster. Diaz sucks. Boom.
New York Post headline. No, you're good. You're good. We appreciate you coming on Amazin But True for the first time. We'll do it again. Good luck this season. The journey's cool. And it makes, Figgy, I never thought I'd feel old with the voice of the Mets when he didn't know ASL. So I guess that's the 32 and up club knows about the AIM screen names and ASL. That was the thing. It was male 15 English, or whatever, New York. And you didn't even have a screen name. You didn't have a chat name.
No, that's because you're a derelict. That's why all that stuff started out because you're hunting in the chat rooms. ASL, that's you.
Listen, that word is too big for me to even know what that. Can we stick to 2 to 3 syllable derelict? What the hell is this? Let's stick to 2 and 3 syllable words. I can't do the big ones. All right, Keith Raad on Twitter. That's 2 A's. Catch him on WCBS. Keith, good luck this year, and looking forward to seeing you in Queens. We'll be covering games. I'm there 60 times a year, so I'll see you at the ballpark.
Thanks, fellas. This was great. Good to talk to you.
I enjoyed that interview with Keith Raad, Figgy. His journey is, it's inspirational. The fact, he's 29. I mean, God, it's very rare I feel old on this podcast because all our guests are older. You're the gramps in the room, but now I'm grandpa. I mean, I'm going to be an uncle in August. My brother is having a boy, but like, damn, now I'm grandpa. Anyways, I don't want to get on a grandpa soliloquy here. That's just good night to episode 131 of Amazin But True, a Mets podcast from the New York Post.
Thanks to you, Grandpa Jake and Andrew Hartz, for producing the show as always. Subscribe to Amazin But True on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the New York Post Sports YouTube page to watch all of our episodes. Give us a thumbs up below on YouTube and comment on your predictions for the Mets season. Follow us on Twitter at Amazin But True, at FiggyNY, and at Jake Brown Radio.
Funkle Jake. I'm gonna get a T-shirt that says Funkle Jake. It's just me in a picture holding the baby, rocking the carriage. Figgy,
rocking the carriage,
rocking the boat.
How old are you, Grandpa? Rocking the carriage.
When I was a boy, Butch Husky was on the New York Mets in 1996. Gary Cole was still on the radio. It wasn't Howie Rose. Howie Rose was with Fran Healy on Fox Sports New York. Yeah, Keith was full. Keith couldn't speak when Howie Rose was doing TV with Fran Healy. I was Ian Pastrami. Anyways, speaking of Ian Pastrami, what a transition. My God. I mean, don't at me. The food at Citi Field's better than anywhere else in baseball. I was, my stomach was hurting the following day. Like, I think that's what got me sick, honestly, was all the food from Thursday. Because now I've been under the weather, a little congested. Figgy, what a spread. Nothing tops. And I tweeted it, and people were asking, what is that? The Jacob's Pickles fried chicken sandwich surrounded with donuts and like a barbecue, although it didn't look like barbecue sauce. I guess it was called barbecue sauce. I guess it was just a different color. Barbecue on there, on that sandwich around donuts.
Yeah, don't judge it by its color.
Insta diabetes, and insert the gif of the actual diabetes grandpa. I don't know his name. Sorry to diabetes guy. But the fried Oreos, the different flair. They had the Pig Beach barbecue, a lot of big upgrades to Citi Field. It is going to be an experience going to the ballpark. Come with an empty stomach, leave with an empty wallet and a full stomach, right?
There you go. That's what the Mets are hoping for. And I think with the pitch clock, it's not going to help matters. But hurry up, get in line, and enjoy the food because you might be already in the 5th inning.
Yeah, I mean, eat it quick. Get it down quick. They say not to eat quickly because that gets you fatter. Maybe that's why my brother is skinny, because he ate a lot, but he ate very slow. And I noticed, I'm like, you eat poorly, but like you're skinnier than me.
Hearts, write this down in your journal, okay? All the Brown family traits that Jake doesn't have. That
led to the ADHD experience here in Amazin But True. Yeah, good genes going on there, not here. But I was almost like, also the Tullamore Dew, the whiskey, like, it'll sneak up on you. Be careful.
The coffee whiskey.
Cold brew with whiskey. So it'll wake you up and get you drunk at the same time. And hopefully the Mets offense does the same. But we hope the Mets will get you drunk. The Tullamore Dew, that'll get you drunk. That was good. But it is just going to be a fun year at the ballpark. The Speakeasy, good luck if you get in. It's going to be tough to get in. It's expensive. But go around the ballpark, try everything. We had a blast at the New Ed City event. And the Mets are doing cool things. Discounts for season ticket members on food. Although 10% is like a nickel. It's like no money, but it's better than nothing, I guess. And then the
got to play for the Jumbotron.
Yeah. The Jumbotron will cost them a couple extra $1,000. But the Citi Field, the student discount they'll do for tickets for games. So Mets doing a lot of cool things, and we'll talk more about that as we get you ready for the home opener next week. For Nelson Figueroa, for Keith Raad, Andrew Hartz, I'm Jake Brown. We'll be back Thursday. I'll do a short episode after the Mets' first game of the season. The season is here. Mets Marlins Thursday, 4:00. Cannot wait. We'll drop that for Friday morning, and then we'll be back with a normal episode next Monday. And then again, Thursday, catch Astoria after the home opener with ND Shoppers. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Enjoy this season opener, Figgy. And as always,
let's go Mets.
I love you too.
That's 4 words.